Hey everybody, welcome to Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews. This week we're looking at Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones is an adventure game for 1 to 4 players where players are going to take on the roles of Gearlocs. Basically think of a little bit of a Tinker Gnome or something similar to that. And your eventual quest is to go through a whole bunch of days. Your eventual goal is to try to take out an evil tyrant. Now these tyrants are going to play out differently and they're going to create different challenges for all of our heroes. And the extra special challenge of the game is you only have so many days to defeat every single one of these tyrants. Now the cool thing about the game is this is actually a really cool little adventure game because you're going to be playing a hero who's going to be leveling up by defeating baddies, going on adventures, and doing various different tasks, but it's not always about the battles. This is kind of a tactic style game mixed with an RPG style game, mixed with an adventure game where everybody gets to level up, play cooperative, work on a grand goal to take out this baddie, and if you get enough expansions or additional content for the game, you can actually even play a full campaign where eventual goal is to wipe all the countryside of all the baddies and save the land from these evil, horrible tyrants. At the start of the game, the players are going to have to cooperatively figure out exactly which one of the tyrants they're going to go after. Now, every one of these tyrants is going to play differently. They're going to add different adventures into the game. They're going to add different baddies you're going to have to encounter. And we're going to change up the way the game is going to play. And they're going to have anywhere from short gameplay all the way up to long gameplay or very, very tough encounters based on the baddie. And yes, it's usually better when you're first learning how to play the game to go after easy guys like Nom. But after you get really, really good at the game, it's very good to go after some of the really tough guys, the ones who can be extremely challenging, the ones who can play a bit longer but add a lot of complexity to the game. Now, all the players get to pick one of their little plucky little Gearlocs that they're going to use to go on this adventure. Now, all these Gearlocs play differently. You have your medic, you have your tank, you have your crazy little DPS guy, and you even have your ranged person who's going to throw a whole bunch of bombs to blow up the battlefield. And again, all these heroes play differently, and with expansions you're going to be able to add more heroes, more Gearlocs, more adventures, more conquests, more opponents, and more stuff to the game to add to the complexity. Now, like I said earlier, this game is going to play out over days, and every single day players are going to draw an encounter card. Now, these encounter cards are going to do different things. They're going to play out differently. Some of them are going to be very simple, but every single one of them is going to add a little bit of storyline, and they're going to have a decision for the players to make. Now, these decisions are going to do things like lead to one-on-one battles, decisions such as players having to discard their hard-earned rewards, or maybe they'll have to do things such as go and do unusual things where instead of just normal fighting on the battlefield, they'll have to roll dice for competitions, or you can just have your standard stuff where players are going to have to fight different baddies, go on these conquering out there on this little battlefield, and this is where the tactic style gameplay comes into effect. Because when you're going to these tactic style fights, the players are going to find this little 4x4 grid right here, and they're going to have to create a baddie cube based on how powerful our heroes are getting, how far they're getting into the adventure, how many days they've taken, and how much closer they are to taking out this evil tyrant. In the beginning, as our players are fighting the baddies, they're fairly weak with not a lot of hit points. Sometimes they'll be very low on hit points, maybe only having 2 hit points and not too many special abilities. But as you go on through this adventure, the monsters are going to get tougher. They're going to start having more hit points, more special abilities, more powers, more ways to make the lives of our heroes difficult. And eventually, you may even be able to challenge the extremely challenging monsters, the ones that can attack from range, the ones that have lots of hit points, the ones that can do lots of things to our heroes, including poison our heroes, or eventually you may even fight the grand tyrant, the baddie. And the eventual goal of the game is to defeat the baddie, send them to the grave, and if our players can defeat the final tyrant, they manage to win the game. Now, on top of all this stuff, as the monsters are getting more powerful, our heroes are also getting more powerful. Each one of our heroes comes with a hero sheet, which is going to give us different skills, different abilities, different powers, and yes, our heroes will even eventually level up to gain extra special powers, extra tactics, and every one of our heroes plays extremely differently. And not only do they play differently from each other, every single time you play the game, you can level up your hero completely differently and play a completely different hero. For example, if you decide to play a game where one person decides to play the medic and one person decides to play boomer, well, you don't have much defense in this kind of circumstance. You're pretty much an offensive with a little bit of healing. So the way you're going to level up patches, the way you're going to level up boomer will be completely different as opposed to playing a game with Picket and Tantrum, or if you want to play a 4-player game with all of our heroes, or if you want to start throwing in the expansions, start seeing all these extra heroes, all these extra Gearlocs. Well, they're not all Gearlocs, but they're all our heroes trying to defeat these tyrants to bring out the end of these horrible tyrannical villains and save the day. And again, like I said, our heroes are going to level up, gain extra stats, extra abilities, and it's going to change the way the game plays thanks to different encounters every time you play the game, different loot every time you play the game, different treasures every time you play the game, different monsters you're going to play, and this game plays out differently every single time you play it. And that's just the base game. You can add in the expansions such as campaign play. You can add in extra expansions such as Undertow, which is a standalone expansion, which brings in more heroes, more adventures, a more complex battle mat with different kind of creatures such as mechs and crown, which are going to have you having to save your boat as you're trying to sail down a river, or defeat robots, which can be extremely challenging and force you to change the way you're playing the tactics of this game, because I can tell you the basic monsters are so much different than the later monsters when you start throwing the expansions. Monsters that need different strategies, different tactics, and shake things up and make sure that you can play this game differently every time you play it, and you're going to have lots of replay and lots of variety in this game of Too Many Bones. Now, while the name of the game is Too Many Bones, it's not a game that's all about rolling the dice, because this is a game that requires lots of strategy, lots of tactics depending on how you're going to place your little Gearloc out there on the battle mat, how you're going to fight these baddies, how you're going to confront them in the order you're going to encounter them, which baddies you need to take out, and you got to start prioritizing, because some of these baddies are extremely challenging. They're going to have special abilities, the abilities to poison you. They're going to have the ability to start attacking through AE attacks. They're going to have the ability to breathe fire on a party. They're going to do negative effects on your heroes. They're going to do, our party of your heroes can do positive effects too, but they're going to do a whole bunch of things to shake up the battlefield to ensure that the game is not just about rolling dice and seeing who can roll the highest. The game is going to be about tactics, about smart leveling, about smartly using the abilities of all of our heroes, and making sure you're planning for the eventual baddie, because every single one of these tyrants plays differently, requires different strategies to beat the game. Now, if you want to learn how to play Too Many Bones, you can check out my tutorial video where I'll show you completely how to play the game. And I'm actually going to do kind of a combination video here. I'm going to show you how to play the base game and also Undertow, because I'll talk about this in the review, but I think Undertow is actually the better entry into the system because it adds a little more complexity. But I'll explain that when I talk about the review. You can also see some sample gameplay where I'll do some sample gameplay just with the base system game itself. I'm just going to use 2 Gearlocs so it doesn't get too long and too complex. And I'll show you some gameplay and go through a couple rounds and a couple days of the gameplay so you can see just how the game plays. And of course, if you want, you can check my full review of Too Many Bones, where I'll talk about the system itself, some of the expansions, but I'm going to do some separate videos also talking about the expansions such as the extra Gearlocs, the extra heroes, the campaign system, the add-ons to add extra monsters. Well, you'll see it all. Just check out the entire video series. Now, if you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at offtheshelfboardgamereviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. Be sure to answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this video, series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.